Well, hello, Gold Derby. I'm here, Daniel Montgomery, with Charlie Bright and Ralph Galvin, and we're here to talk about these Emmy races. Latest developments. We've had shows like, the Comedians premiere on FX, and Game of Thrones season 5 is coming up, premiering as we record this tomorrow, Sunday night, April 12th. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we think these races stand for best comedy series and best drama series, and let's start with best comedy series. You have Modern Family in there, obviously trying for 6 in a row, and can it really get 6 in a row? Which means the question is what can possibly beat it, and what can possibly be nominated with 7 slots. First of all, let's start with Comedians, which just premiered. Ralph, what do you think of that show and its chances?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it has a good shot. They're fans of FX. They have Louis up on there. I'm not sure if they would. I'm just not sure if the Emmy voters would go for 2 FX shows. That seems a bit much unless they're going to drop Louis and then put the comedians in there. But as we were discussing prior to this, it falls in that kind of Larry Sanders, 30 Rock type show where Emmy voters like to see TV made on TV with a little comedy, and it's got Billy Crystal. I mean, if anything, it's got a huge name attached to it, and we'll be paying attention to that. So I think it's got a legitimate shot, more so than probably some of the other ones that have kind of entered the late half of the season.
I think it has a bit of a shot. But I don't really see it. Uh, I don't really see it as something that they might go for, except for the fact that it is, the whole idea of the behind the scenes of a show. But to me, from what I've been observing about it, it seems a bit more like how, in terms of how Emmy reaction might come, it seems a lot more Studio 60 than 30 Rock, if you understand my drift.
Yeah, and it's interesting. What surprises me about this show, because I think it also has sort of, I feel like it should appeal to the same Emmy voters who vote for Veep and vote for Curb Your Enthusiasm whenever that's on every third or fourth year. It should appeal to some of the same viewers. It has the same kind of dark comic edge, but. Unlike those other shows, the critics really aren't behind this one. The Metacritic score is in the 50s. It's not, this is far from a critic's darling, and I feel like for a show on FX, a cable show that's trying to break in here, I feel like it's gonna need some support in terms of critical acclaim. I'm sort of surprised that it didn't get that. But that might hurt it, I think. Do we think Billy Crystal, though, regardless of whether the show makes it in, whether he gets in on name recognition alone or not, but do we think he gets into comedy actor?
Very possibly, but again, I don't think it's just a really tough game, especially when you consider how the comedy actor category has gone in recent years, and it's just the same over and over and over again. At this point, Matt LeBlanc and Don Cheadle getting nominated again, I feel a bit more confident with that than with Billy Crystal getting into the competition.
Yeah, I kind of agree, though. I think Billy Crystal is a big enough name where they'd feel comfortable maybe potentially dropping Don Cheadle of his kind of name check nominations. They did put William H. Macy in there. I don't think they're going to drop him. I think he had a pretty strong season, so he'll be back. Yeah, I mean, if we're on the comedy side, we're thinking that Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda can get into that category on name recognition. I don't see any reason why Billy Crystal can't in kind of a weaker field.
Yeah, I sort of agree with Ralph. I think I think Billy Crystal is a much safer bet for comedy actor than the show is for comedy series, and it's just really because I'm thinking about Matt LeBlanc and Don Cheadle. I would be really surprised to see them both get back in. I think one or the other might, but I don't see really a lot of passion for either show within, the Academy in terms of other nominations. A couple of writing nominations for episodes, and that's really it. It really does feel like they've just been, because we have these slots to fill, those kinds of nominees. It just doesn't feel like, they can only coast for so long, and I feel like this is probably the end of the line, at least of them, possibly both. But I could be proven wrong because the Emmys do like their continuity every year.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say you're crazy on that one. Because I remember Mariska Hargitay with Law and Order SVU, and how many times for like 4 years there was like a prevailing wisdom at on Gold Derby where we thought, okay, this is the year she's finally gonna drop out, and then she would always be there every single time. And I hope you got the vibrations from me pounding on my desk. But and so until it's one of those things where until the Emmys prove me wrong, I'm gonna keep on predicting them.
But I think they liked Mariska better than they like Cheadle or LeBlanc in this category because they'd never won. Mariska Hargitay did win, and that show got a lot of nominations in the guest category and wins in the guest categories, and Chris Maloney was nominated that one year. So the acting branch really did like that show a lot better than they've seemed to like the comedian or episodes and House of Lies. So it really feels like they're not quite as strong as that. I think if there's one comparison to be made to Mariska Hargitay, where I think we've already learned this lesson that we should not rule her out anymore, is Edie Falco for Nurse Jackie. I remember a few years ago we wondered, okay, will they finally drop her from the category? And not only did they not do that, they brought in Merritt Weaver, and she won an Emmy. And then I felt like the ground is shifted on comedy actress enough that I feel like Edie Falco's almost a lock for a nomination this year too. Do you guys think she's safe, or because comedy actress has a lot more new actors, a lot more new competitors coming in this year than comedy actors? So is she still safe, or is she at risk?
I think she's pretty much a lock. I think she's even safer now that Taylor Schilling is out of the category because there's one less like kind of what we would perceive as a lock anyway in there. So I think it's going to be probably a handful of ladies vying for probably one or two slots that are left open in there because everybody else seems like they'll be back.
Yeah, I think she's pretty much a lock. This is going to be I believe this will be her final. Is this going to be her final chance with Nurse Jackie?
I believe this is the last season of Nurse Jackie.
And these episodes are the ones that are going to be nominated, right?
Yes.
Okay, then yeah, this is her last. This would be her last nomination. I think she's pretty safe in this one.
And speaking of comedy actress, where I mentioned we have these new actors coming in. Taylor Schilling, of course, is being moved over to drama actress with Orange is the New Black, since the TV Academy made that designation that Orange is the New Black will compete as a drama now. But Netflix could still have like 3 nominees in this category potentially. We've got Ellie Kemper in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and then we've got 2 legendary actors, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin in Grace and Frankie. I currently have all 3 of them in my top 6 for my predictions. What do you guys think about what those guys? We haven't seen Grace and Frankie yet. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt just came out on Netflix a few weeks ago. How do those shows look to you guys?
I have Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt getting in there, and I think that show is going to overperform in general because I think the reviews were very good for it, but plus it also has the Tina Fey factor, and I think that's gonna lend a big good seal of approval for Academy members to vote for that. Grace and Frankie, I'm just not as sure about since we haven't seen it. I don't have either of them in there right now. That could change, but as for right now, I just don't have either of them in there.
Wow, that's brave. You have either Jane Fonda or Lily Tomlin, and that's.
I will incur the wrath of Jane Fonda on this one.
Who do you? Curious then, who do you have in there filling up 2 other slots?
I have Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Amy Poehler, Edie Falco, Lisa Kudrow for the comeback, and it's one of those. Hey, we were talking about behind the scenes in Hollywood and how they like that. Comeback is ground zero for that. And I also have Gina Rodriguez in there.
Well, at least there's one smart move you got there. I got definitely have Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin in there, specifically after the Derek event that I kind of told you guys about. Netflix seems to be really high on the show, and the head of publicity there herself said that that's one that they're thinking could really do well in the comedy categories for them. And I mean, just on not only on name recognition, but if you saw the trailer just came out a couple of days ago, and specifically Lily Tomlin looks really strong in a lot of it. So I think I think they're pretty much both guaranteed. I don't think Netflix will get 3 actresses in there. You guys know my personal feeling on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt off of one episode. I just don't think Lily Kemper, or whatever her last name is, has enough. When the show came out, it had a lot of BuzzFeed articles and it had a lot of buzz on Gold Derby. I don't know, like Tom had pointed out at the event to the Netflix lady, that many people outside of the message boards are really talking about Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I mean, you know, I'm holding out hope for Gina. I don't know if she'll make it in. It is still a CW show, but I do have her filling out the last spot in that category. I don't have Lisa Kudrow anywhere near there. The comeback was months and months ago. She didn't score a Golden Globe nomination like everybody thought she would. She didn't break into the SAGs like people were hoping she would. I don't see her, you know, popping in here randomly. It seems to have faded away.
I wouldn't rule her out, Lisa Kudrow out entirely. You know, I don't have her in my predictions, but you know, she just sort of reminds me of this Laura Dern type nomination if she makes it in, where Enlightened had been canceled and after 2 seasons, and you know, it was a critically acclaimed show that flew way, way, way under the radar, but she managed to get into comedy actress anyway. So I do think that's possible. One thing that I'm interested in, you know, one name where we've kind of talked about and talked over, I'm not sure, maybe we're taking her for granted, and I'm wondering if we should, is Amy Poehler. I mean, this was last season of Parks and Recreation, but is she really safe for a nomination? Because, you know, the Emmys have not really embraced Parks and Recreation that much. You know, they nominated it once for Best Comedy Series and a couple of times for Best Writing. In 1 year, it got 2 nominations for writing, but Amy Poehler has really been the only consistent nominee for that show, and I'm wondering if she might just squeak in, or if she might be one of the surprise omissions. Do you think she's at risk, or you know, I really want to see her get back in, but you know, I know the Emmy voters don't love her as much as I do.
I think she will. I don't think there's that much to worry about with her, because even as the nominations for the program have declined, she's still gotten in there, and so I think she's pretty much safe as long as she'll get in. She'll get in.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Charlie on this one. I don't think that she's in any real danger
Stop
of
the
having
presses.
her spot taken over. I mean, she's pretty respected in the industry. She was nominated when she was on Saturday Night Live, and then for every season so far on Parks and Rec. I don't see him dropping her that much, especially because there's, I mean, other than, you know, a few Netflix leaders, there's really nobody else that she's got, you know, nipping at her heels, I would think. And back onto your point about Laura Dern, she did win a Golden Globe for Enlightened as Best Comedy Actress.
But
so
Golden Globes
kind of not the same thing.
Any influence on the Emmys at all?
No, but it was more visibility at that point than Lisa Kudrow has now.
And I believe she won the Golden Globe for the first season of Enlightened, and she
in 2012
for the second season. So it wasn't like, you know, she was building on that momentum. It was more than a year, like a year and a half later, that she got the Emmy nomination after she won the Golden Globe.
But now we're talking about somebody who's had a 10-year break between the show, 8 years, something like that.
Nominated last time.
Yeah, exactly, like 8 years ago. Yeah, that was my point. But it's okay. I think we're all consensus here pulling for Gina, so it doesn't matter. We can move on.
Well, I actually don't have Gina Rodriguez in my predictions. She would be. I would put her in there, like in my personal list, in a heartbeat. She might even be my personal choice to win it. But I just feel like, you know, CW, WB, UPN, that curse is just inescapable. I feel like, it's like this black hole on the TV Academy ballot where they, no matter how good the show is, no matter how much it should appeal to older voters, like Gilmore Girls on the WB was such a geezer-friendly, Emmy-friendly show, and they never nominated it except for once for makeup, and it won that one, so goody, but that was all
Yeah.
I forgot. So, part of me thinks that maybe, Jane the Virgin's best shot at a nomination will be Rita Moreno because she's such a legend for guest actress. But it would be wishful thinking for me personally to put Gina Rodriguez in my top 6, but I will be happy to be wrong if that turns out to be the case.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how much of an impact the upcoming Critics' Choice Awards that are the nominees are coming out in what, like 3 weeks or so, and then the TCAs. I mean, those could give her a much needed bump. We know the show is a critical hit, so she could kind of get helped by that. But I agree with you that I think that the network curse is going to be a lot to overcome.
Yeah, I think she'll get the critics. I think she might be this year's, like, the comedy Tatiana Maslany this time around. Like, the critics groups went unanimously for Maslany the last couple of years, and then so I think Gina Rodriguez might be that sort of contender on the comedy side, which would be great. I mean, a lot of times the critics have better taste than the TV Academy, so. Okay, so for a comedy series, we've got, it's one of those cases where every nominee from last year is back. You're back on the air. And one is moving out. One is Orange is the New Black is going to be competing as a drama series this year. But the other 5 are going to be in here: Modern Family, Veep, Louie, Big Bang Theory, and Silicon Valley. So are they all coming back?
I think so. I think so. The only one I would have kind of on the bubble is Silicon Valley, but if the upcoming season, I think there's something that's really telling. I don't know. Just let me throw this by you guys. Has anybody? Did you notice that they flipped the time slots? Originally, it was because I remember last year Veep was on at 10, then Silicon Valley at 10:30. They flipped them, so Silicon Valley is on first. Do you think that means HBO is trying to boost that on some level?
It's possible, and we lost Ralph for a second there. We'll see if he comes back in and comments on this. But it might be the smartest thing they can do for Silicon Valley in terms of its visibility, because you want to get attention to this show that you believed in enough, obviously, to give it a second season, and you want potentially Emmy voters to pay attention to the show and to notice the show. What do? You sandwich it between like a billion-time nominee Game of Thrones and frequent Best Comedy Series nominee Veep. If you want to watch Game of Thrones, then Veep. You gotta sit through Silicon Valley if you hadn't watched it already. So as opposed to if you wanted to watch. Last season you could have watched one, then the other, and then turned off Silicon Valley if you wanted to. This time they're really sort of pushing it, so it's positioned nicely for that. I think it'll come back in. I think actually maybe more vulnerable than even Silicon Valley might be the Big Bang Theory. It's the biggest hit on TV, the biggest hit comedy on TV, but we've seen the diminishing returns for network comedies in the comedy series race, even though Modern Family continues to win. It really might be the only other network comedy nominated, and the Emmy voters haven't really embraced it the way audiences have. Jim Parsons has won 4 times, obviously, but other than him, it hasn't been a writing and directing contender. It hasn't won the supporting categories. Mayim Bialik's been nominated a few times, so it's never really been as big a show at the TV Academy as it has been in the Nielsen's. What do you think about Big Bang Theory's chances?
I think I don't know why. I just kind of think it is just kind of safe, but you got me to think of that it might be creeping on that level of of possibly just getting kicked out. Since there are several more interesting or more passionate nominees that have more of a passionate following, that they'll that the Big Bang Theory might just slip out, and then they'll probably nominate Parsons again. But but the show could very possibly slip out.
Although, wouldn't that be interesting? Because we've seen this happen before with, with Eric Stone Street and Keira Sedgwick and Juliana Margulies. You win and then you're gone. And maybe Juliana Margulies, I don't think was Juliana Margulies knocked out the year after she won or the year after that?
I don't know if she was ever knocked out. I don't. Was she?
Yeah, the year before this season, when she came back. Last season, she was snubbed in 2013. That was one of the big headlines of those nominations.
Oh, okay.
And now that I think, I'm pretty sure she won in season 2. So
she won season 2, yeah. Because remember, Keira Sedgwick beat her in season 1 because of that whole fiasco with her episode submission.
Yeah, so it would be really interesting to see if because that's the interesting thing. They nominate you on sort of a popular vote, and then episode submissions and these very small panels of juries decide who wins based on those episode submissions. So we don't know if maybe he was 4th, 5th, or 6th in the nominations voting, and the episode submission put him over the top. Like John Cryer was won for 2.5 Men and then was knocked out the next year. It's probably unlikely because comedy actor is not the deepest pool in at the Emmys this year, so he should be pretty safe as long as if Big Bang Theory goes on another 50 years, he'll probably keep getting nominated unless there's more skin in the game
He'll probably keep on winning.
Probably. I don't see him winning again this year though. I feel like 4 they'll at least give him a year off. I don't see 5 would be astronomical.
Can we just have can we set up a camera outside your apartment, and if he does win a 5th, we just see your television fly out the window and land on the ground?
It wouldn't be the worst thing that's happened. I mean, Jim Parsons is very good, but it just seems odd. Like at any other period in TV comedy history, I think he's mostly been the beneficiary of a really slow period for lead comic actors, which so there's just been less competition for him, especially in terms of episode submissions, because Sheldon is such a showy character.